Yeah, well, exactly. And the backlog's still going to be there. And then we still have legal migration, small matters. I mean, I laugh and I cry over the fact that you had a government that went, oh, 700,000 more people.
Yeah.
How did that happen? You gave them the visas.
Yes.
I mean, literally gave them the visas, allowed them to come here.
Maybe having another 700,000 people every year in a country of 70 million people might be a bit of an issue for, I don't know, infrastructure,
I don't know. Well,
GPs.
if you're not building any new homes or electricity power stations or nuclear power stations or reservoirs or roads.
We haven't built a reservoir in about 40 years in this country.
I mean, why would we need... We've only got 10 million more people in the country. Why would we need reservoirs?
Water,
but you know, the rain we've had in the last few weeks, we will still have a hosepipe ban.
Of course they will.
Of course we will.
As night follows day, there will be a
let's talk about. I mean, look. I mean, the few tit for tat things that were said during this, as we expect in PMQs. Starmer basically saying, you know, whatever you do, whatever you announce, you'll always be Mr. Nobody. That's his new line.
Coming from Keir Starmer.
Coming from Keir Starmer to Sunak, and then saying, new year, new nonsense. You're a prime minister who doesn't get bitten. This is a really big thing for him. This whole and the Labour. So you're rich. You went to top private school. You know, you're rich. You're married to a billionaire heiress. You have no understanding of what it's like for an ordinary people. I wonder how much Keir Starmer.
He is a road man. He's down with the kids.
I mean, son of a toolmaker, was he? The guy ran the factory.
Yes.
But again, I don't think, we've seen with election, Tony Blair and Boris Johnson. I don't think the British public have a problem with someone who's well off. I mean, look, we all wish we'd married better, Peter. I mean, hello, darling. To be fair, he wishes he'd married better as well. But he says, Sunak was saying that Keir Starmer, he backs the people smugglers over the British people. He says, not a single new idea, all slogans, no plan. I mean, is this just a taste of what we've got coming up for the next...
There's going to be
how many months?
An awful lot of this for probably the next 10 or 11 months. This mudslinging is just going to happen.
Does it appeal to voters, the mudslinging, though?
I don't know. I think a lot of it is they're going to try to make it a sort of presidential election, especially because Starmer is more popular than Sunak, even in his own constituency. From Labour's perspective, that seems to work for them. Yeah. And also, if you focus it on Rishi Sunak, you focus it less. You take the focus away from all the disunity within the Conservative Party. Yeah. That's the idea, anyway.
The reality is, in Benedict Spence, that there's also a lot of disunity on the Labour benches. There is still the Corbynista element. And again, I wonder, Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are quite popular at the moment, but actually when you dig into those numbers, it's mostly I can't bear the Tories anymore, they failed, as opposed to, I think this guy's great. I do not feel the buzz that was around Tony Blair, around Keir Starmer.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of scepticism. I think it's very fresh in the memory, those Labour years under Jeremy Corbyn and all that went with it. And I think that people can see. I understand that for some reason people really like people like Angela Rayner in Westminster, but I think a lot of sort of swing voters look at people like that very prominently still in the Labour Party and they go, how much would it take for them to actually cause a bit of mischief? And let's say hypothetically Labour doesn't win a stonking great majority. Let's say it's quite a narrow one. Actually, how many are there in the party who might think, well, we can use this to our advantage if Keir Starmer, much like has been happening with the Tories, an 80-seat majority ain't that much in the grand scheme of things. So,
and you can lose your mandate very, very quickly. And again,
down to 54 now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the issue now, and also there is no money. There is no money, and this idea that actually the battles are going to be, on very tiny little issues, but also on a lot of sort of culture war issues. I think we need to address the culture wars. It ain't been dragged up by the right. This has been imposed on us. The ideology in our schools and workplaces and all of that. And I think that's what the Tories are counting on. But I think a lot of people just feel like we've been failed by the Tories. They've not. All of this stuff has happened under the Tory watch.
And they will have one last push and an attempt in the spring budget to do more tax cuts to say
tax
to people...
cuts on top of tax rises. Then.
Yeah, well, exactly. And also, do people feel better off? And will they be grateful to the government if they do? If you've been taxed very highly for a long period of time, you get a little bit of tax relief. Are you going to say, well, thank you very much to the Conservative Party?
Also,
I don't think so. I don't think it works
Nobody's going to go into this next election, even if your national insurance is cut or you're taken out of the higher tax threshold. Well, you put it up in the first place. With inflation... and even with the pay rise, somewhere close to inflation, one of the years, I'm still worse off. People aren't stupid.
Well,
they
Rishi...
know when they haven't got as much money in their lifestyle, when they know when they're having to, you know, say, like, well, we can't afford 2 weeks of holiday, we're going to only have a week away. And, you know, when they know when they can't afford to replace their car. They know when they're worried about putting the heating up. They know when, you know, they get the bill for the, you know, school meals or a new pair of school shoes. They know when they're going, we don't have the money for that. People aren't stupid.
And this is fascinating because over Christmas, when it was emerging that Rishi Sunak had those talks with Dominic Cummings, the sort of evil genius strategist, who was saying you need to have really, really
evil
radical...
genius who got ousted by his boss's wife.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. He was saying, you know, radical reform was neither going to be really big things. But the fact is that Rishi Sunak is not a radical. He's never been a radical. He's always been incredibly cautious, incredibly managerial, and there's not going to be a big, bold, radical vision for him that's not there already.
Well, neither of these men is brave. And what the thing is, that's the thing I feel that I think most people, that, you know, that neither of these parties, neither of these leaders are offering the sort of, the radical change, the radical sort of improvement to our way of life, to our values. I just...
Thank goodness for Ed Davey, that's all I can say.
What a country.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think they're scared of their parties. I think they're scared of their electorates. I think they're scared to offer tangible things because they fear the backlash. Again, this is what happens if you conduct politics entirely via optics. Oh, how does that land? How does that sound? Rather than, here are the facts, here are the figures,
here are my values.
Yeah, and also, if you don't like it, well, tough, go to the other guy who's not offering you anything. And this is a real failing of the Conservatives. We were talking earlier in the show about intergenerational issues. There hasn't been a Conservative Prime Minister prepared to say to older voters, look, if you vote against house building and reservoirs and electricity, spoiler alert, things get worse. And actually, if you want to keep voting for that, fine, but your lives will get more difficult.
And also, your kids and your grandkids won't ever be able to get on the housing ladder, and then you'll end up paying housing benefit for them.
Yeah, there needs to be a Conservative who appeals to people in the national whole and say it's a civilisation.
I will vote for anyone who is honest with the electorate and who has values. I don't even have to agree with all their values. I just want to know you actually believe in something. Ideally, the same things that I believe in, but I think that's what people are crying out for. Anyway, huge thanks to you, Peter, for joining. Great to have you in the studio. Happy New Year to you.